Hey y'all, this is Kisank Ma Keparu here, Hetep, Namaste, and I'm here with a very special broadcast for you, and I have a really good guest, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk a little bit about Ma'at, and we're going to be talking about the Open. I'm here with a very special broadcast with me, a really good guest, and we're going to talk about Gia Jackson. Say hi, Gia.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Now, Gia's been with us before. I've interviewed her before, and she has a really great revolutionary approach to healing. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, find out about her approach. On our last conversation with her, I really found this interesting. And as many of you know, I talk a lot about Ma'at, the Egyptian deity. And I found a lot of parallels between the two, which I thought it was just, really fascinating, which is why I asked her to come back on the show. So let me just, before we get into the open-hearted journey, I want to talk a little bit about how it relates to Ma'at. As you know, Ma'at means many things, but Ma'at is the goddess of truth, justice, and righteousness. Her mate is Tahuti, or also known as Thoth. Many of you know Thoth from Aleister Crowley. So Ma'at also symbolizes the heart. And in Egyptian mythology, when you die, you go before the judge Osir or Osiris, and your heart is weighed, and Ma'at is there. So what happens is you have the scale, and your heart is on one end of the scale, and a feather is placed on the other end of the scale, and your heart must weigh lighter than the feather. And the symbolism of that, or it's a metaphor for saying like you're a very lighthearted person, meaning that you go through life and you don't take anything to heart, or you're not too serious about things, because the Egyptians believed that it was the internalization of emotions which kept karma going, meaning that whatever you were attached to emotionally, you would be reborn again and again. And in order to get out of that cycle of karma, you couldn't have anything internalized, meaning you had to be very lighthearted, and that would stop the whole idea of the karma wheel, as you also know in the tarot. So the whole idea is with Ma'at, there is a practice that's called Inking Ma'at. Sorry, my Egyptian is a little off. Where it means basically to still your heart. So it's a practice of going around, kind of like being stoic in a way, stoicism, and the Greeks stoicism, where you're not allowing anything to sway you, so you're keeping your heart still at a certain rhythmic pace so that you can become centered on what we call as Amen, at peace. And we know that Ma'at is the daughter of Ra, and Ma'at is the food for Ra, meaning that truth feeds the spirit, the soul. Ra is your kundalini, your chi energy. So truth nourishes your energy inside. Now, the heart is important. They've written many books on the heart in terms of when people come together, the beating of the heart, the rhythmics tend to align and things of that nature. And there's even the idea of the heart being intelligent, But for our purposes, and when we discuss Ma'at, we're going to talk about how the heart is emotional, and it is emotional. It's the key to emotions. And if you believe this, whether or not you're going to continue to reincarnate. And the heart also talks about, if you go to the Chinese I-Ching, 27th hexagram, meaning nourishing, what are you feeding yourself? What are you feeding your spirit? Meaning, what are you attached to? Are you attached to things that uplift you, or are you attached to things that are kind of low and like degenerate things that you're just chasing everything emotionally, you're not centered. So that is the whole idea and philosophy about Ma'at. And it's a really big thing. People have lived their lives according to it. If you do real research into this, you'll see that Ma'at goes on to the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at, which some say the Ten Commandments were inspired by that. Unfortunately, they took only 10 out of the 42. And Wallace Budge, who created the Egyptian Book of the Dead, he doesn't call the 42 negative confessions is like that per se, but he uses the term spells when he refers to the Egyptian prayers. That's a Western kind of concept, like these are spells, but when we look at the Bible, we look at Psalms and things of that nature. It's a whole different thing. So with that, I want to turn to this extraordinary woman who has done some awesome work in putting together this system of healing and upliftment and just a spiritual journey similar to Ma'at, to where, I believe there's many parallels. And I want to, for myself, know more about it because it's so fascinating. And her life story also is very fascinating on the things that she's gone through in her journey, and to put all this together to where she can help people and share her wisdom and knowledge on, again, this journey. So welcome, Gia.
Thank you so much, Kasank. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
What I want to first, if we can, for the audience, first define what is open-hearted.
So open-hearted is it's a way of life, and it's really about living your true purpose. It has to do with living as a whole being. And so we go through a process, and that's called the open-hearted journey. And I wish I could say it's just one thing. But essentially, an open-hearted person is someone who is authentic, they're genuine, they're kind, they're loving, but they're also honest. Like, not that kind and loving people aren't honest normally, but there's just a certain frankness and sincerity and genuineness and authenticity that all combines, where the person, like, normally people will think that somebody who is kind and open and vulnerable is not strong and can't stand up for themselves. But the concept of being open-hearted is that we are all of these things. And so it really is about combining our dualities. So the things that we dislike and the things that we like, we actually find an acceptance or a peace with. We find a peace with everything that we dislike. And with that acceptance, we're able to actually bring our entire being together and become what's called whole or complete.
Can I hold you there for 1 second? Yes. I'm sorry. What you said was really profound, because Ma'at is also known as the two truths, and there's two Ma'ats, which we call Ma'ati, dual. So that's very interesting you said that. So sorry to interrupt you.
That's fine. Yeah, and I've noticed, like, I saw, I had the pleasure of watching one of your earlier videos about Ma'at, and I'm not familiar with Ma'at. Everything that I've learned has been through meditation and chakra balancing over the last 3 or 4 years. I know about astrology and numerology, but I'm not somebody who has, I discovered all of this literally through meditation, chakra balancing, and then writing my memoir. And then I had to make a website. And when I started creating that website, all of this information just started pouring out of me. It was so bizarre, because I would write something down and then I'd be like, well, does that even make sense? And then I would go and look it up, and there was just all of this evidence that supported what I had said. So anyway, my point is that I didn't know about Ma'at, but most of the things that you've said resonate with what I understand to be true. And it's fascinating to me that she is the, what did you call her? The heart goddess? Yeah, I love it.
And just for one correction, because I got to stop drinking. It's actually pronounced. Let me go back.
Okay.
I had a long, hard day. I was working on the Stranger Thing Netflix, and I'm like,
cool.
Low, but it's called Minab Ankin Ma'at. Minab Ankin Ma'at, and that means keeping your heart still to live truth.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and so for me, what it was is I discovered there were a number of things that I went through, which you can ask me about, but it brought me to a point where I literally started following my heart. It literally told me it was like talking to me, and it still does, and that's how I live. And you had mentioned, that there was intelligence, like they speak of the heart as in being intelligent. And then you mentioned also, but we're just going to talk about emotional. And so I want to point out that the heart is actually far more intelligent than the brain. The heart, because it is feelings, and because our feelings create, this world is created based on our feelings. You cannot have an action without a feeling that creates that action. It is virtually impossible. You can think all you want, but if you're thinking like just rational, like how do I get from point A to point B, those are not creative thoughts. So anything that is creative is actually feeling based. So you have like feelings that exist down in your core, and then you have feelings that exist in your intuition. Your intuition and your body, they are all connected, and they are all feeling based. Therefore, it's not like heart. The heart is the ruler, and the heart is the creator of our lives. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about you and your journey. Like, how did you discover all of this? Because this is really revolutionary, I think. And it must have just took a lot of, I don't want to say pain and suffering or trials and tribulations, but this is a well thought out plan, which we're going to reveal to those watching. But what was your journey like? How did you discover all of this?
It was devastating. So in my book, it's lots of times what our heart tells us to do is it involves a challenge, and when we follow it. So like for me, I was married I had a dream, and I had gone through just a lot of stuff, and like my father had killed himself, and I was in a rebound relationship after that, and married, a person that just really, we were not a good match. And I was married for like 12 years. It was not a good marriage. And one morning I had this dream, and it was like this pink light came down, and I woke up, and my heart had opened, and I had to follow it. And if you want to know all the details, you would read my memoir, but so I'm not going to, go too much into that. But essentially, it was telling me to do things that were insanely scary. And so when we talk about courage, it's having having the bravery to do what it is that we know is right. And why do we do this? We do this because, for me, I did it because I knew that at the time I was almost 40 years old. It was literally like 10 days before, or 4 days before my 40th birthday when I had that dream. And I knew that I did not want to be one of those people when I was 70 or 80 or whatever, who was laying on my deathbed saying, I wish I had done what my heart told me. And there are so many people who just, they go through life and they don't listen. And they worry, well, what if my heart is wrong? What if these feelings that I have are incorrect? And I would submit to you that those are correct. And it's all about having the courage to just do what it says. And so it's devastating in many ways, because doing what our heart says often does not appear rational. It often does not make like logical sense, but it has to be done because it is ultimately right. And I don't mean like, it's being true to who we are and our nature, and therefore it is right. It is living our purpose. And so what's right for one person is not necessarily right for another person, if that makes sense.
That Mott says that very plainly.
Mm-hmm. And so, fast forward to a few years, maybe a year and a half later, I actually ended up I filed for divorce and went through that. And then, so part of the whole thing is that you have to heal in order to become open-hearted, you have to heal your heart. And so a lot of people, when they go through something really traumatic, it could be a death, it could be a divorce, it could be anything really. It's usually an outside world event. So there's something that will stimulate this. And so like when I was separated, I just kept hearing there's a hole in your heart. And so I jumped into a relationship because I wanted to fill that hole. And the thing is that if you have a hole in your heart, and these are of course energetic holes, they're not or ethereal holes, they're not actual physical holes in your heart, but and I've spoken with other people who say similar things. They hear their heart saying there's a hole there.
Yes.
And so, but the thing is if you have a hole, or even if your heart's broken, or whatever it is that's being said to us, think of a bucket. So you have a bucket. If there's a hole in your bucket and you're trying to fill it with stuff, what happens?
Yeah. Just overflows?
No, well, there's a hole in it, so the water goes out.
Yes, correct, yes.
You can't ever fill the bucket. Everything so the heart is like it's a creator, so it will draw what you want to you, and you will not be able to hold on to it because there's a hole in it. Yeah. So the heart has to be healed before you can actually receive and hold on to what it is that you desire, or the heart's true desires.
Let's take a step back 1 minute, because you got a good point there. Who can this help?
Anyone who is experiencing emotional issues. I've spoken with, I don't know, hundreds of people. And so and the effect is always, it's different for everyone because our issues are all different. They're all individualized, but so this can help people who have relationship issues with their spouse. Does not mean that they have to go get a divorce or anything like that. It might mean that they end up coming closer to that person. It can help. I submit that it can help people who have drinking issues and some drug issues. If other processes are followed, and I'm not saying that, I'm not a doctor or anything, but these processes used in conjunction with other recovery therapies, it can assist.
I'm glad you said that. Yes.
Yeah. And it's whatever you feel is lacking, it can help for that, because it's really becoming open-hearted is really about becoming fulfilled and finding your specific purpose in this life. And most people have no idea what that is until their heart is healed and they can actually completely accept who they are. Because most of us live in this world and we don't know why we're here. We do things that we're told to do or that we were raised to do out of a sense of responsibility, or because we fear being ostracized. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it can help a lot of people, I believe.
That is awesome. And the one thing about this is that you're right, it's attacking the source, because a lot of times, you ever heard the term of putting a Band-Aid on something?
Oh yeah.
You're right, but when that hole is there and it's not fulfilled, mm-hmm. you can go out there and jump from relationship to relationship. Right. And, but what are you really looking for? You know what I mean? That is the issue that you have to face. So when you embarked on this journey, was there a point where when you discovered this information, did it change your life? What happened? Because I know at one point you were pursuing acting and things of that nature. So what happened?
Well, acting was something that was really was probably my life path, but well, obviously it wasn't my life path, but elements of it have come back. But that was long ago. So I started, what really happened was it was, acting was something that I left. And it was really out of frustration because I didn't know myself. I didn't know who I was or anything like that. And so after I healed my heart, it was something that came back to me because that was a true, I believe it's because it's a true desire that lives within me. And I love expressing myself. I'm very emotive and I, so that's like kind of my thing. But, what happened was, I mean, and it's really kind of, ridiculous when I look back on it, if I was a judgmental person, but I'm not. So, I was going through a separation, and I met someone who was actually, I would call him my twin flame. And it was a very short relationship, but very, very intense and very deep. And this person, because of their issues, ended up essentially, breaking my heart. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say he broke my heart. I would say he actually made it incredibly much stronger. Yeah. Because what happened was the really like a few weeks after we had broken up, I was out trying to date again, and and trying to fill that hole, right?
Oh wow, so fast.
And so I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. Like, what am I doing? But that's what I was doing because that's what I was taught. In order to feel fulfilled as a woman, I had to be in a relationship. And a lot of people actually feel that way. They feel like they're not complete if they're not with somebody else. And so anyway, I was on a date with someone, and all of a sudden, he said something to me, and I just realized, like, I just saw through him. Mm-hmm. It was, and it was just his energy. Like, I could just see, like, 10 steps down the road, exactly what was going to happen. And I started seeing, like, and all of this information was coming from my heart. And it was telling me, oh, this guy's going to do this. That's going to do that. This is, and so it became, okay, I actually stopped dating. And I realized that I had a lot of emotional issues that I needed to heal. And that it wasn't so much that these men were bad. It was really how I was perceiving myself and what I would, what existed within me that was kind of creating these situations. And I figured out that if I healed how I felt, then I would be able to, then hopefully I would attract a better person. I would attract a better man, right? Yeah. And so I literally went out, and I know that may sound shallow to some people or whatever, but that's what it was. And so I decided, I started dating myself, and
I like that, dating yourself. I like that.
Yeah, I got to know myself, with that. And that's really probably one of the first steps to becoming open-hearted is really getting to know yourself and to look within. And so, like, in the Open-Hearted Journey, which is the book that the how-to book that I'm writing, it's all about learning to defer to yourself versus other people when we make decisions. So we always want to ask, like, what do I feel? What is it that I want? And one evening I was coming out of a pub that I would go to a lot, that I would frequent. And this person was walking down the street, and he spoke to me a certain way, and I just kind of freaked out. And I realized, like he said, "Hey, girl, let me buy you a drink." Like, he was picking me up, and I was like, yeah. And I freaked out.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it was just very strange. Like, it was like a pickup. And I was like, I'm walking down this, like, that's just freaking weird. I mean, it's a nice compliment, but it was not what I wanted. But then I realized that I actually, and there's a lot more to this, but I'm not going to get into it in the interview. It is in the book and everything, but I actually saw my subconscious reactions. I saw because I had been at that point I had been meditating. It was 2014. I had been meditating for probably just about 2 years every day, and I had been balancing my chakras for maybe a year at that time. And I was at a point where I could actually, I could see I saw my ego trigger my subconscious reaction. So I saw my ego trigger my flight or fight gut instinct, which was to run away from that person. And I did, and that was what I did. And then I was sitting in my car. I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, why did I just, I mean, somebody approached me and was kind of nice and funny. And I just like, and so from that, I figured out a way to heal my subconscious programs. And that was really, I would say that at that point, my heart was already healed. When I was with the twin flame, that relationship healed my heart. It healed the hole in it. And essentially what happens, so wait, there was something I wanted to say. I'm going to come back to it because I forgot what it was. But essentially, the heart is so powerful and so strong that when you get what you need from a relationship, the heart will kick it. It gets rid of it. Like if the purpose is no longer being served, it's like, okay, this is done. And then you're on to the next thing. And so that's what happened with that. And I have completely lost my train of thought. So can you bring me back to where we were?
Okay. I mean, you said some very interesting things. I used to be a dating coach, and I don't do it anymore, but I talk to a lot of people, and you know, where I'm at, I'm not gonna go into details, but there's a lot of people with relationship issues, believe me.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I notice is a clear sign that they haven't moved on and they don't have closure is they repeatedly talk about things. For example, a woman may talk about how bad men are, and a man may talk about how bad women are. And I always say, I was like, listen, focus on what you want. Stop talking about all the bad things that happen or the bad qualities of certain people, because you're only going to attract that. So I said, just stop complaining and go for what you want. But I think there is something within people that I guess they feel comforted in complaining and not moving on.
Actually, what I would say is it's really, it's fine to, we attract what we feel. And so people who are talking about the same thing over and over again, what they're essentially doing is they're trying to release that pain. And what they're actually doing, though, is they're furthering that pain. They're making it worse. And so what the process is you heal it. And that's acceptance. But the thing is that so often we are taught that we have to think good thoughts. That's not how you freaking heal anything. You can't just think, you can't go from having a really lousy experience to feeling super positive unless you accept it. And when you accept how you feel. Feel like crap. You say, I feel like crap. I don't like men, or I don't like women, or whatever, or this person was not good for me, or this person, whatever it is. And then we go into that feeling and really accept it and bless it. And through the law of attraction, what happens? Well, your acceptance is actually what heals it, and then is what actually draws acceptance to you. And that is what brings the better life and the better partners and the better relationships. It's acceptance of all of the harm that we feel, of all of our pain, of all of our wounds. And so many people, they try and deny what they feel. And that is completely backwards. That's because the thing is that your heart is a creator. It's a magnet. And what it does is it pulls everything that you feel to you. And why do you think it does that? To heal.
Mm.
So it pulls it to you to heal. And so if you constantly deny your creations, right? So if you're constantly creating these relations, like that's why people will have so many lousy relationships, because they keep recreating them.
Mm.
But and then they say, oh, well, you know, men are lousy or women are like this or whatever it is. And they're not taking responsibility for their part, which is that they created this. And so when they actually accept it and say, oh, wait, you know, what is it about me that I don't like about this person? What is it that I am doing? And really try and really accept the feelings around those relationships, everything starts to change. And then in the future, when you go out or when you're with, you know, new partners, it's all about accepting what this is how I feel, and I accept it, and I am worthy, and it's okay that I feel this way.
Yes. Yes.
And that's really how that is what I would call purifying your heart. And so all those, you know, ma'at, that all of that is about, so becoming lighthearted. That is how you become lighthearted, is you purify those emotions from your body. They literally exist inside of you. And they can be, they're usually have nothing to do with the current relationship or the relationship in this lifetime. That it's often, it has its past lives. It could sometimes be related to a relationship with a parent or something tragic that occurred. But all of these emotions, they exist inside of us on an energetic level. And until they are accepted, healed, and released, the person will continue to attract them. Their heart will continue to attract them, because it is, the heart wants to heal. That's what it does. It is a healer. If you don't let it heal, you're constantly running from your creations, you're just going to keep drawing the same things to you. So to me, it just made sense to accept it, and heal and bless it within me, and then move on. And because all those lousy feelings, when they're accepted, they actually turn into acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And so nowadays I have very few, you know, like I can literally walk in almost anywhere. I really, it makes very little difference to me what circumstance I'm in, where I am, who I'm talking to. It's all about, you know, I live from within me. I live from within my heart, and I'm very connected to my feelings, and also my intuition, and I do use discernment. I'm not, you know, I don't just say anything, but I really, you know, do my best to be very aligned with my heart and my feelings, and that way I can actually draw a better life into, like, to me.
So let's talk about some really dark issues here, because I've had a couple of situations that have happened, which were much to my surprise. The first situation, I'm taking notes on what you're saying because you're talking about stuff here. The first situation was a woman I was working with. She was an actress, and knew her for a long time, and only, you know, recently I noticed that there was little certain things about her, and she recently revealed that she was molested as a child.
Oh wow! Mm-hmm.
Another friend found out that he was physically abused by his parents, and when they said these things, everything about their behavior made sense. And one of the things I told them, because the gentleman who was abused by his parents really had all of these mixed emotions, and he didn't feel comfortable in public. And I said to him, listen, it's understandable that you feel this way given what you've gone through. And that one statement made him feel so much better. Like it wasn't just him, that his reaction wasn't unusual. I'm like, no, it's understandable. No one has walked in your shoes, so they can't judge you. So what do you think about things like that, abuse and sexual molestation, and using open-heartedness to apply to that?
I've gone through my own abuse. I experienced abuse, and it's really, so lots of times when we heal our hearts, that abuse will become apparent. Like, because for me, it was something where I literally tried to shut my heart. And that's what most people will do, is they try to shut their heart so that they can forget that it happened, because this is just a natural, ego response. We want to run from what we fear. And so all of those situations, it's really the same process. It's a process of accepting what happened. And let me be clear that accepting does not mean that, it doesn't mean that you're a victim, and it doesn't mean that what the other person did, that the abuser was justified in what they did. And it also doesn't mean that you have to go and say anything to the other person. It's really finding an acceptance within ourselves that this happened. Yes, it's affected my energy, and yes, it's affected my life, so that I've actually been I've been subconsciously creating these events to try and heal that. And to me, that was, just very freeing to realize that, everything that happened since I was about 3 had really been in reaction to closing my heart. And so I had simply been recreating all of this stuff. And yeah, so it's the same process. We build up, we create neural pathways are created to avoid areas of pain, and we act in certain ways in relationship to others. And then unfortunately, what often happens is, because we're trying to deny what happened, we're actually hiding part of ourselves. We're not living wholly, and we're not completely accepting ourselves, because there's always a part of us that we're scared to look at because of what happened. Are you with me? Okay. And so it's all about accepting the event that it happened, and really healing it within us, and seeing that event has created our lives from that point up until now, or up until the realization.
Can your partner help heal your heart?
No. Well, not really, no. It's really, it's a very intimate journey. And it really, so we can have all types of partners. Normally people who have closed hearts or have wounds in their hearts, because of their defense mechanisms that they've built up, they will constantly choose the wrong partner. So these are people who will choose, other people who abuse them, maybe not in the same way, but in similar, they might talk down to them, or they might have anger issues, or, they might be, the person could possibly be like a high sensitive, or a person like have an anxious temperament in a relationship. And then they would choose to be with an avoidant person. And so the avoidant has a fear of intimacy, and the anxious person wants to be intimate so they can heal their issues. And the avoidant is like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Which is not to say that either is good or bad. It just is, but it's just not helpful for either party, really. It's not helpful for healing that. So if they have a helpful partner, that partner can help to a certain extent. But my stance is, it is far better to be single while going through the open-hearted journey, especially if we have those issues, because what we look like at the beginning of that journey versus what we look like at the end of that journey is like completely different. And you probably wouldn't want to be with a person that you were originally with, like when you started the journey, and you just go through so many changes. And it's about, if I can just say, it's about becoming open-hearted is about learning how to listen to your heart. If you're in relationship with somebody else, it's very hard to consistently follow our heart and do what it says to do, because it might say, I don't know, it could say, go to Egypt. It could say, write a book, right? So my heart said, write a book. And I spent 3 years writing a book and, 8,000 hours. And I've written 3 books now. And it's very, it's very hard to have an intimate relationship with someone when I'm sitting here writing my book 15 hours a day. Because I have to sleep, like 6, 7 hours. Like it just, so you have to have a lot of time to devote to yourself, to whatever it is that your heart is saying that you need to do. And that is normally not finding another partner.
So let's talk about this, because I actually met a woman not too long ago who came, and she was asking a lot about Ma. She needs some help. She had anger issues, serious. But the good thing was she was willing to put some time to help, but it was difficult getting through the anger. How do you deal with that?
How do you mean?
Like, person comes to you, their heart is full of anger because of the past, but they want help. Is it possible to still work with that individual?
It completely depends on the situation and on their energy. So normally the people who come to me, I feel really blessed. They're generally very open. And they're usually at a state in their life where they have a fair amount of success or have achieved a very high level of success. And they're just like, okay, so I've done all this stuff, and what else is there? And so those are normally my clients. And I feel very blessed that way. But I do have, some friends who have, where I've, and they're not my clients, so I don't really look at it the same way. For me, if somebody crosses my boundaries, I let them know, this is what I would do, but I can't necessarily, it's up to them. And so anger issues are very similar. It's, has to do with acceptance and healing. As far as like, if somebody comes to me with anger issues and they're directing that anger on me, I'm not going to work with them, because that's not conducive to a healthy relationship. And every person I work with, so every time I have a conversation with someone, I consider myself in relationship with them. Like you and I are having a hour-long relationship. And so my clients, I have, those, hour, 2, 3, 4 hour long relationships with them. If somebody's bringing anger to me, it's not really, if I can help them, I'll help them. But if I can't, if they're just throwing anger back at me, then it's far better. It's far more constructive for them to process their anger and then return, versus, I don't know if I'm really answering your question.
No, but you know what? Let me tell you this, because this is the most extraordinary experience I had. And it's the only time I ever had this in my life. I usually travel. I travel a lot, right? I was in New York, right? And, I was in 125th Street, Harlem, and I was standing there looking at the oils, and I was going to buy some oils, right? 2 women came up to me, and they were asking my opinion on the oils. And I don't think these women knew each other, right?
Okay.
And, the one woman, she had picked something, and I said, well, you have to put the oil on your skin, because the oil interacts with your body chemistry.
Oh, right.
No, differently. But here was the most extraordinary thing. The other woman came on over, she asked a kind of a similar question. But from both of these women, I got the energy and the vibration of anger. These women, I said, man, and it was something about them that I just felt, it was like, wow, they are not happy people. It's just, okay. I don't know how to explain it. What do you think about that?
I just roll with whatever comes to me. And so I'll try to try to guide the person as far as like, so lots of times it's more about really tuning into them and what they're feeling, what I'm sensing they're feeling. For me, lots of times I kind of mirror them. So if there's some anger, or like, what's the word? I don't know if the word's not really anger. It's, what is it? I can't think of the word. It's not resentment, but if I'm sensing some resentment from them, that is usually their subconscious programming.
Mm.
And so the whole thing is I just open my heart and accept them. So it's really like, I mean, you could sum up the open-hearted journey in like 3 or 4 words.
But that's what I see. What I was saying. My point was that.
Oh, nothing. What?
My point was.
Oh, you took out a book.
Was that me? Like, I always think, hey, you're an empath. You were feeling their emotions, and they weren't really rude toward me. They weren't rude at all.
Okay, so that's not anger. That's something else.
Yeah, I was just like, man, I'm sensing like anger and all that. All right, sorry, I'm getting my book now. This is the I-Ching, right? You know why? Because you said something that's right out of this book.
Did I really? That's awesome.
And it's extraordinary. I was like, oh, she didn't say that. So this is the 61st hexagram, inner truth, and it talks about the heart being open, exactly what you said, and accepting of people. I'm just like, whoa. Yeah. That is awesome.
That's the key.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was, I always, the thing is, I don't want to say, like, for me, the way I live, I don't want to just go off first impressions, but I do listen to my heart, and I'm saying, if I'm picking up a vibration, then I need to kind of consider that. But now, the thing is, I want to go a little bit deeper into this, to explore the actual process now. But before I do that, I want to ask you a controversial question, right? I've never like I studied NLP. I'm a big fan of hypnosis and
neurolinguistic.
And years ago, I just decided to just try this. I went to a therapist, and I worked with her, and I found her full of crap. I was like, I actually.
They'll let you talk for years if you want.
Yeah. And I was like, what am I getting out of this? And I actually met another therapist. She was using the Freudian technique. I forget what it's called, but where you just talk, right? And then she helps you come to your own epiphany or whatever. And I was like, geez, this what this is about? I'm like, wow. So I want to know, like, and Scientology, they have their own thing. They really hate these therapists. They're like, no, they're no good. So what is your take on modern therapy? Do you think, in comparison to the open-hearted journey?
Well, so to me, I think, first of all, I think that anytime we can discuss our feelings and kind of emote, I find that in general incredibly helpful. But I would say that, like when I do, and so one of the things was for me, when I decided to heal my subconscious programming, I went out and had these conversations, and they were very organic. They just occurred. And I would end up having these conversations with people. And at the end of those conversations, which would last anywhere from 15 minutes to 2.5 or 3 hours, the person would thank me, and they would often say things to me like, wow, you helped change my life. You changed the trajectory of my life. And we only spoke for like 15 minutes or, whatever the time limit was, or time, whatever length of time we had spoken for. And so to me, it's really, we can get, like, as far as with open-hearted coaching, and I don't necessarily call it therapy, because what I do is I help people change, I help people understand their thought processes better so that they can make better decisions in their life and are not reliant on other people to make their decisions. They hopefully are learning to look within their heart and really make their own, be self-referring and make their own choices. And that then leads to their better life for them, whatever that their choices are. And then they'll feel good about their choices because they know that they followed their heart and they did their best. But so it's really different. Open-hearted coaching is different from therapy or talk therapy. I can normally for me, it's, I might meet somebody once and that's it. Or when I see them again, we're talking about other things like football or basketball or whatever. We never even go back to that. and these people are, you know, they're happier and they're they're more present. And so, you know, I know that the effect has it, you know, that our conversation had an effect. But there's no more need necessarily for that talk therapy. So the two are probably, I guess, under similar categories, but they're not, it's just a completely different process.
Mm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Now I'm jumping ahead a bit, but if I want a session with you, how do I go about it? What does it involve?
So if you wanted to do a session with me, you can email me at giaj@openheartedjourney.com, or you can go on my website, which is also openheartedjourney.com. And there's a place where you can sign up. It really depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I've got, you know, I would email you forms that you would fill out and tell me things about like your lineage and, you know, where you are at in life. But lots of times people just want to meet and have a conversation, and we get to know each other. And through that conversation, everything just unfolds. So
Awesome. So let's get to the good stuff, nitty gritty. Let's talk about the 8 phases of this.
Oh, your favorite.
Yes. Let's start with closed heart. Like, can we talk a little bit about that? That's the first one.
Yes. Okay. Are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, we kind of discussed a closed heart, and that's usually there's an emotional trauma that occurs. And a closed heart denies what happened. And they're usually doing this for self-preservation reasons. And I also call them unconscious creators. And so when we have people who are, so essentially we're all creators. It's just a matter of whether we are conscious or unconscious, right?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. What you said there is just, it resonated with me. It's so deep. You said unconscious creator, right? Oh my God, that is deep.
Well, we all know who one, we all know one right now, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's a closed heart. And the thing is that when your heart, because as we discussed, the heart is a healer. People experience these emotional situations, their heart gets wounded, and it can be tragic what happens. And if you're empathic, if you're an empath or a high sensitive, these people, and I am one also, and so we try and we shut our heart to what happened, thinking that will protect us and we can just move on with our life and la la la, everything's going to be fine. But the heart is a healer, and so it's a magnet, it's a creator, so it keeps through the law of attraction, it draws what lives within it more into our life, and it draws the subconscious and unconscious things into our life, not the things that we think about, but it's the things that we feel that it draws into our life.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to actually go through that healing process and accept, heal, and release, to process this or purify our heart so that we don't continue to draw it in. But what often happens is a closed heart goes, so the second phase is an opening heart.
Well, one thing though, I just want to clarify that with that closed heart, actually, you're like one of the first persons that have actually recognized that, you know? And I think the only other people I know that touch upon that are Wiccans, witches and warlocks, and they call it the shadow self. You know, I just
Yeah. So, and the shadow self is actually a result of ego. And ego creates, when we have enough, when our energy is not clear, when our chakras are not clear, and we're reacting based on fear, which is how many people function. It's all based on, you know, well, will these people like me? What if I do this? What if I do that? It's all ego based. And that creates it's like dirty windows. It creates like a dirt on our chakras and in our energy. And it creates what's called I call it the veil of the ego. So we start perceiving the world through this veil of ego. So we can't actually see that there's only love, okay? Because that's actually the reality of our world, is we exist. This world that we live in is ruled by love. It is ruled by our hearts. We create it entirely from our hearts. And if we are looking at the world through this veil of our ego, ultimately what happens is that veil kind of takes on a shape, and that's your shadow self. And if you are, a seer, you can actually see the shadow self pulling people's, you can see the ego manipulating a person. You can actually see it in their movements, and when they speak, and in their gestures. So anyway, but the shadow self is something that's is very real on an energetic level, and it's kind of a result of having that closed or wounded heart, which is stuck in a reactionary. So
okay. And next one, you're just talking about the open heart now?
Yeah. So opening heart, that's really where you become willing to change. And that's so that the heart can heal. And this would be like for a closed heart, what happens is the person who runs from relationship to relationship. They are, this would be the person who they get into a relationship, and their heart opens because they're excited, and that is actually wonderful. You want your heart to open, and it needs to open so that it can heal. Okay, you cannot, just like they go in to do open heart surgery, they gotta kind of crack everything open. This is a very similar concept. The heart has to be open in order for its wounds to heal. And it draws better feeling events to it. When it opens, it starts feeling better. And then it begins to heal. And so what later happens is, while it's healing, when there will be an event that happens where the person can perceive that event either in a helpful way or in a harmful way, okay? And if the person runs from that event, they deny that it happens, it shuts their heart again.
Oh, okay.
It stops their healing process.
Gotcha.
And you go right back into being a closed heart and an unconscious creator. And that's the cycle that they go through.
Okay. And then there's healing.
And then there's a healing heart. And so if the person goes through this experience that feels lousy, but they don't shut their heart, they still keep it open despite the lousy experience or event, then the heart expands and it continues to heal. Okay, so it expands and it exposes further weaknesses, which the person then, because it feels better, they will generally recognize that it feels really good having my heart open. So everything that happens to me, I'm just going to start accepting more. I'm going to accept myself. I'm going to accept my feelings. And then this moves the heart into the Purifier Phase, which is that whole accept, heal, release, where you're literally processing your emotions out of your energetic body.
Can I ask you a question on that? How do you balance between, let's say, for example, a man or woman is overweight, right? They have the right to feel good about themselves, but they also should have a goal of losing, or not say overweight, let's say obese, right? Okay. How do you not just accept that and say, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to stay obese because I'm going to have open heart and I'm going to be accepting of this.
That's a great question. So I used to be, after I had my second child, I was like 30 pounds overweight. And I I tried everything to lose that weight. And it's actually, acceptance is a very healing thing. When we accept that, hey, I'm 5 feet, almost 5 inches, and my ideal weight is, I was 152 pounds and my ideal weight was about 128. What is the logical thought process to lose weight? So this is part of accepting and using your brain, right? The logical, rational part. You can't just accept, you can accept I'm overweight or I'm obese, whatever the issue is, but you still have to take the steps to correct the situation to achieve your goals. I couldn't say, oh, I want to write a book and I'm going to sit at my computer and not write. I still got to write. You still got to do the work. And it's the same thing. So it's just then, okay, so how do I lose the weight? Well, I need 1,200 calories a day. That's all I need to eat. And then that's what you make happen. That's what happens. It's not, so it's acceptance, but it's also taking the steps to change your life, to change whatever it is that you want to change. And we change it from within, not from without. And so, don't get me started on the whole diet thing. You're gonna like hours.
Okay. And so we were talking about expanding, right?
So expanding heart, and then it becomes and then the heart starts purifying through our acceptance. But I will say that, for me, when I have, if there's something that I really want to eat, along the diet, I will have what I want to eat, but then I'll make sure that I don't have, I don't eat as much at dinner or whatever it is. I make sure that I balance it out. So it's all about just having, a healthy, being balanced, being in flow with who we are and with our life. And in acceptance, so sometimes I'll walk by a place, I walk by a bakery or something, everything's, you can smell the bread or the donuts or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, I want some of that. And, but when I just actually accept, that craving goes away.
That's good.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a vegan, and people say, "Do you miss meat?" I go, "Nope." But I can appreciate the smell. I'm like, "Oh, that smells good," but I'm not eating it.
Exactly. And so we learn to kind of feed ourselves with other senses sometimes, and because lots of times what we're craving is actually the sense of something versus actually having it.
Yeah, and that is it's tricky because you could be filling that void with food too, that's inside of you.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next, after the heart purifies, then it becomes, so I made the distinction of fully open-hearted, because the truth is that we're always open-hearted. The heart's natural state is to be open-hearted. It's just a matter of what phase you're at. So during all of these, closed heart, that closed heart is still trying to open, and opening, healing, expanding, purifier, it's kind of like a flower blooming. So fully open-hearted, or what I just call open-hearted, is a heart that's pure. The harmful emotions have been detoxified from it. And the person's living in alignment with their truth and with their heart. So they're feeling their feelings, they're expressing their feelings, at least to themselves, when they come up, and they're processing the emotions that continually come up as a result of just living in this world, right? Because, and then that does bring a level of serenity to it. And this whole concept of, you said, with Ma'at and being calm. So that's all about being calm and aware. And at that point, so for me, I don't really, whether I feel extreme joy or extreme sadness is very irrelevant to me. I am actually very I'm good with whatever emotion I happen to be feeling. And this gives me a level of serenity and calmness. And when we are at that phase, and just living in the present, then this wonderful, wonderful things start to happen. Something harmful, something tries to attack us, our heart will let us know, and we become the open-hearted warrior, as we discussed last time. And then, and we also become more of a conscious creator. And so that's somebody who's really living in their alignment, and they're like a change agent. They're really helping. They're divinely guided in many, many ways. So like for me, I'm always, I always want to do, I live in my truth and my alignment, but whenever and there is no but, it's that I'm in my truth and my alignment, but I'm also in, I want to be in alignment with what I perceive as God. So I'm always like trying to be with the creator, and especially when I'm out, it's about connecting with other people. So it's kind of a different experience, but conscious creator is someone who's actually helping change the world for, bringing a message of a piece of hope, and they can be incredibly powerful. So
if I'm Catholic or say Christian, can I still work with this?
Of course. So I would submit to you that Jesus Christ was a conscious creator, one of the highest levels. Any type of any savior. I believe that these people, now this is my personal belief, and what you do, like if you are incredibly religious, and I was not raised this way, but so I don't completely, so essentially, yes, you can work with this, energy. And the way that I would suggest that a person work with it is, and so I actually, I'm not religious. Like my mother was raised Catholic, my father was raised Jewish, and I really had no religion growing up. I didn't even know who Jesus Christ was until I was like 6 years old. I didn't know about Christmas until I was 5. And so, but I pray and I pray to Jesus, and I pray to Mother Mary. And so it's really just about being in alignment with the God energy that is within all of us. And to me, these people, all of these saviors, many of whom are worshipped now, such as Buddha and, all of those people, they were people, and their message was to look within, and their message was that we are all gods. And so even if it's just like when we pray to the God within, but perhaps if you have a certain religion, then pray to Jesus as if he was within you. Pray to, whatever your religion is. If it's Allah, pray to Allah as if he was within you. So it's more just it's a very holistic viewpoint versus like a me and them, because there is no me and them. We are all connected.
Now we have some people watching us now, and I'm going to play kind of like devil's advocate. Like, let's say I'm a hard-nosed stockbroker, and I say, you know what, that sounds great, but can this help me excel and make more money? Or let's say I'm a father, right? Can this make me a better father? Like what?
Yes. How couldn't it?
Okay.
That's my client right there.
All right. Okay. I like that. Okay. So let's talk one more about, let's go back to the, because I like what you're saying. Okay. So what you had mentioned something, I don't know the exact words you used, but it was akin to nirvana. It was akin to being at peace and stuff. What are you reaching that level in this journey?
When I meditate, when I balance my chakras, yes.
Okay.
So
if I practice this, can I get to a point of where, like you were saying, like, well, you know, I'm okay being whatever emotional, wherever things are at right now, I'm okay with that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm not.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying, as though if I'm practicing this, will I get to a point to where I am centered in a way where these things of life don't kick my butt, you know, like emotionally. You know?
So it depends. Okay, so there's to becoming open-hearted. There's the easiest way for me to explain it is a pyramid. And so it's a three-sided pyramid, and there's three pillars to becoming open-hearted. The first pillar is meditation, mindfulness, and being willing to change. Meditation includes a 10-minute breathing meditation, which helps us learn to look within. And then also, once you're comfortable with that, about 30 to 60 days later, you begin chakra balancing, okay? And that includes, you know, throughout your day, you're being mindful, okay? So this is the part where we get to understand our subconscious reactions, that thing where our ego starts to trigger us into feeling certain ways. So if, and that is really the first key in that pillar, is you have to be self-aware, and you have to have that level of understanding. The second pillar is understanding the forces, which we didn't really go into. We've kind of indirectly discussed them a fair amount, but the second pillar, or side to the pyramid, is understanding the forces that rule this world that we live in. And then the third pillar is actually healing our subconscious programming. Some of it we discussed, but there's a whole process to it, and really depends on how helpful or harmful your reactions are to your life. Yeah, and so, but to answer the question, when we practice these, yes, they can bring you to a level of peace and serenity and calmness, and being, and I would submit that even just the 10-minute meditation is helpful to almost anyone. It may not eliminate all of your emotional reactions. I don't think it would, but it will eliminate many. And the more we practice this, the easier it becomes to actually live in this world and draw more of what it is that we want to us once we purify.
Okay, so if I came to you, say, with just some issues and stuff, and I know it's on an individual basis, but, you know, this journey, how long is it? Like, how long would it take me to get to a point of where I feel more open-hearted and, you know, relaxed and centered? And
that's a great question. So it completely depends on the person and what phase they're at. So what I always encourage people to do is consider this a long-term. You know, this is changing your life. And when you just consider, depending on your age, it has taken you X number of years to create all of these habits, create your life, and all of these things. So what we're doing is you're actually going in and you're changing that. And so it could take anywhere from a few months to a few years. And for me, my journey started in 2000. You know, I had that dream in 2013, and it's 2017. And I would say that I have been open-hearted since I finished my memoir. Well, since probably a year before I finished. It took about 2.5 years.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
You know, I like to do a little thing. It's kind of new. I do on some of my broadcasts, right? It's called Quick Tips for the audience, right? I know this is a long process, but if you can give me some quick tips on some of the things I'm going to like just go over. First one is quick tip. I want to find the right mate. How do I do it?
Heal yourself.
Heal yourself. Okay.
Heal yourself first, and everything else will come to you.
All right.
Everything you want will come to you when you heal yourself.
Heal yourself. I'm very pessimistic. How do I stop that?
Accept that you are pessimistic.
Accept. Okay.
Accept your pessimism. There is nothing wrong with feeling pessimistic. And there would probably be some subconscious programs to heal with that as well.
Okay.
But you wanted a brief answer, so.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, next one. I hate my job and my life. How do I deal with that?
Accept that you hate it. And then make better choices.
Okay.
Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Accept and follow your heart.
I'm on a seafood diet. Everything I see, I eat. How do I stop that?
That's awesome. Just eat half of what you see. I don't know.
All right. I'm an actress and I get constant rejection. It's killing me. How do I deal with that?
Oh my God. Be who you are. Stop rejecting yourself.
Okay. Good. That is all. You did well. That's great.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you feel that way.
Some people get stuck. They're like, "Oh, I've never heard that one before." Yeah. And
yeah, I'm an open book. Whatever.
That's good.
Ask away.
Yeah, and also too, as it relates to what you were saying about balance, Maud does relate to balance, of course, to scale. And one of the things that the way Maud helps to heal people is because Maud, she is very optimistic. So, which is good. She's always looking at the brighter side of things.
And it's always helpful if you know, with the whole pessimistic thing, it's always helpful if you can get yourself to a place of accepting the pessimism, because when you accept that, then you can actually bring acceptance to you. But you still have to have, I call them thought arrows, so you can have helpful thoughts. That's where, you know, the whole positive thinking can be helpful to bring you up a few notches.
That's great. So
that's another discussion for another time.
Right. Just tell me about, you know, you read it in the third book, right? And it's called Openhearted Journey to Wholeness and Beyond.
Yes.
Cool. Is that finished or?
It's in pre-publication right now, and I'm figuring out if I'm going to go a more traditional route as far as getting an agent and then a publisher, or if I'm just going to self-publish. But needless to say, all that being said, I'm still finishing a final draft, and it's taking a little bit longer than I thought. But hopefully by the end of the month, I'll be all done with it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Definitely looking forward to that. So let's, can you give out your website again and how to contact you?
Yes. So I am, the website is www.openheartedjourney.com. I am Gia J, that's G-I-A-J, at openheartedjourney.com. And I can be reached at area code 415-458-2626.
Awesome. And your sessions, are they hour, half hour intervals, or how does it work?
So the sessions are normally, it's really, if you can be in San Francisco, it's much easier if we can do the sessions in person, just because there's so many, just the senses. And that's normally usually I'd say between 2 and 3 hour session. We can do an hour-long session, but I find that it's a lot of information, and normally if we do an hour-long session, we're really just getting started, and it's kind of a downer. So I prefer to do 2 to 3 hour sessions, like we'll, you know, eat lunch or whatever and just talk, or have coffee and talk, and that's normally the most effective way to go about doing it. But yeah, we can do it via Skype also, is fine.
Okay, I got a question for you. It's kind of half serious, half funny.
Okay.
I'm married to Halle Berry. We have problems. Can we both come to you for counseling in our relationship and marriage? And you know,
that's a great question. I never considered that. A lot of my clients are married, but I've never. So I'm not really like a couples counselor. I would probably want to speak with them individually, and then possibly as a couple. But it's really, being open-hearted is so internal. It's about being in flow with who you are. And you can't be in flow with another person until you're in flow with yourself.
It makes sense. Yeah, definitely makes sense. Well, thank you so much. And, you know, I'm a big fan of this journey and your technique and approach. I think it's just awesome, you know.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you much success. I want you, you know, the
you.
next step, you gotta go full. I want the book, I want the tapes, I want the online classes, you know.
Super fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. And you're in San Francisco?
I am.
All right. That's awesome out there. I love it out there. It's very cool and hilly, right? Lots of hills.
Lots of hills. Lots of hills. Yeah.
All right, Gia, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to have you and talk with you. All right.
Likewise. Thank you, Kasank. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, guys. So that's it for this broadcast. If you liked this session, please like the video and subscribe to my channel for more good broadcasts like this. And this is Kasank Mahakaparu, and that's all for now. Thank you.